Welcome, everyone, to AI Futures. My name is Regan. I'm the Coordinator of Policy and Enterprise Risk Management for the University of Regina, and I'm excited to introduce to you our presenter, Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan, who will be speaking on AI literacies. Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan is an associate professor and educational leader in residence in generative AI at the Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning, University of Calgary. His work sits at the intersection of education, technology, and ethics with a focus on how generative AI reshapes teaching, learning, assessment, and professional judgment. He leads and collaborates on national and international projects examining AI literacy, co-design with educators, and the role of AI as a support for, rather than a replacement of human expertise. In parallel with his academic work, he develops applied AI systems for educational contexts, working closely with teachers, school leaders, and institutions to align technology design and pedagogical values with real-world constraints. His scholarship and public engagement aim to support educators and communities in developing informed, critical, and responsible relationships with AI in society. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the fact that artificial intelligence is no longer in the outskirts of our society. It's integrated into our society. You can find it in all sorts of places, including communications, including finances, including agriculture, education, the health system. And when you think about all the places that AI has gone, you can't help to wonder, okay, what's next? Where is this going to lead us? I think there are many different ways you can address that question. But probably if you say it's going to lead us to direction A only or direction B only, that's probably incorrect. It might take us to a variety of different directions. So, if it's going to take us to a variety of different directions, what kind of literacies do we need in order to be ready for the different directions that it will take us? The most questions I get when I'm talking about generative AI and the future or in society is what's going to happen to us in the future, 2030s, 2040s. And the reality is nobody really knows the answer to that question. But at a global scale, there have been many, many different studies, reports by global organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, United Nations, UNESCO, the OECD studies. And if you aggregate all that report, everything that they say, we have three possible futures, and they're not exclusive. They can happen at the same time. The first future is the future of efficiency. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, they love that future. They've been providing reports on efficiency gains, the productivity gains, all the different ways that AI is going to help us become more effective, more efficient in everything that we do. We're going to work faster. It's going to lower cost. There's going to be profit everywhere. AI is a very good thing. And in some aspects, that's true. For example, these slides, they're AI made. I didn't make them. I told an AI what I wanted, and it made it for me. If I wanted to create this, it would take me about 20 minutes to figure out the colors and the text and everything. It takes an AI, and I've checked, 2 minutes and 46 seconds to make a slide. So the rest of the 18 minutes or so, I spend my time reading the reports I'm about to explore. There's also another type of future, the inequality future. The inequality future is hidden because, well, the World Bank doesn't like to talk about it. The International Monetary Fund also doesn't talk about it. The inequality future is the future nobody talks about. It's the future where AI systems don't benefit everyone equally. They exist, but they create selective advantage. They don't distribute wealth equally among everybody. Those who know how to use it will use it to their benefit, and those who don't, they will be left behind. We also have major accessibility and access gaps. We don't have stable internet everywhere. That's a cascading problem. And I'll address this in just a moment. There's also an integrity future. And this is favored by UNESCO and the United Nations. If you look at their reports, they're saying, well, previously, the creation of content was difficult. It had to go through a certain publication process. It needed to be verified. It was expensive to make. It was limited, and therefore it could be vetted. With AI, the creation of synthetic information is cheap. Anyone can do it. So you can flood the information space with whatever you want, whatever synthetic information you want. There's too much of it. It's very difficult to verify. If you look at the coding space, if you look at GitHub repositories where people save their codes, it has increased by the factor of 6 since generative AI came out. And if you look at the number of not peer-reviewed publications, but publications on repositories like Archive, the number of papers have increased by a factor of 4. So much information is out there. Is that a bad thing? So what? There's information out there. Well, the United Nations says in order to have a functioning democracy, you have to have access to truth. You have to have access to at least vetted information so that citizens can make informed decisions. If you have a lot of information out there that's not vetted or it's difficult to aggregate, then trust erodes. And you really don't know who to trust anymore. There is an erosion of expertise. So the question isn't, should we use AI? I'm going to shift the conversation to which one of these futures we want to actively shape. You want to shape this future, or that future, or the integrity erosion? All of it is possible. And it's not like we're going to shape the first one, but not the third one. We actually actively need to think about the actions that we take that's going to shape those futures. Okay. I'm going to move towards very large macro trends, things that have been occurring globally, to try to give you a better sense of how do global organizations view AI. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we're going to take lessons learned from these reports that are established at the macro level and try to figure out what kind of literacy societies need. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the whole idea of how is this going to impact work, jobs? And I'll do 2 slides on this. The first thing that at a macro level that's happening is that previously when I speak to people, members of the public, they think AI is something that's going to happen in the future. That future has already happened. It's now. It's already integrated everywhere. So we're no longer in the pilot phase. And this is very clear in the OECD studies, also studies by the World Bank, that it's integrated. Large organizations don't think about, oh, we should do a pilot phase. That's not what their concern is. Their concern is, how do we keep up? Let me give you some numbers from a report, an OECD report. This is November 2025. The report is called Generative AI and Small Medium Workforce. And they did a survey on 5,000 small and medium-sized enterprises across 7 countries, including Canada. So they said that as of November 2025, 31% of small medium enterprises have integrated AI, no longer pilot. It's in their system. Okay. Of that 31%, 65% report performance gains, efficiency, lower cost, higher efficiency. All right. What's interesting is the workload paradox. So they continued and said, all right, from the 31% that have integrated AI, what percentage of the workforce think that their workload has increased or decreased? So 31% said it had decreased. Everybody else said it increased. So you've integrated AI and you're making performance gains. Well, why is it that workload is increasing? Turns out there's a huge labor shortage of people who can use these systems. Very, very few people. The enterprises want to hire people, there's just nobody there. So the people who do know how to use these systems or make tools, they have to pick up the slack. So for them, workload has increased. Okay. Is that an issue? We are moving towards a direction where small, medium enterprises are using AI and they're reporting efficiency gains. That doesn't seem like a bad thing. And it's not. The problem is that for the members of the public who deal with these enterprises who have demonstrated efficiency gains, there's going to be new expectations. I work with Amazon, or I want to shop at Amazon. I want to think it, and I want it to appear. Right? I don't have time or the patience to go looking around. And that's what AI does, right? It cuts down time, it makes things more efficient. And when small and medium-sized enterprises, especially private enterprises, start integrating these systems at a society level, people are going to expect that your institution also integrates so that there is more expectation of, I don't have time, give me what I need. So a new baseline is being established month by month, quarterly. People are now expecting new things, both from public institutions and private institutions, certainly from universities. At a talk at the Calgary Public Library, they're saying the same thing. I want answers now. I want it quick. I want it to be efficient. I want it to be targeted. I don't have time. So then that creates a sort of we're in this weird space of a structural misalignment, right? Institutions need to shift their thinking just to keep up with public expectations. And things can go very right here, or things can go very wrong here. Both futures are possible. The bottom line of this report is the age of pilot projects is over. People have already done the pilot projects. Institutionally, our job is to study those pilots and learn from them while we integrate our systems, integrate AI systems into our own systems. The other question that I get a lot is, when will AI replace my job? Very common question. People are terrified. And they have every right to be. So how do we address this? Like, how do we look at the question of when AI will replace my job? There's a report from the International Monetary Fund. And the report looks at, will AI take my job? And they have a very interesting perspective with regards to that question. If you look at a job, it's not a singular thing. A person does a series of tasks throughout the day. There are workflows, there are standards, there's professional judgment, so on and so forth. What the report is suggesting is that the way to approach this is to analyze the tasks that people do throughout the day, figure out which ones can be automated such that it complements that worker's job. That's the way to approach it. So it's not about replacement. It's about augmentation. It's about figuring out where AI can be integrated in a way that can complement somebody's work. So what does that mean here? That means we have to have new people come and figure out, first of all, what is it that we can automate or we should automate? Number one. Number two, so let's suppose we've automated it. How do we know that automation has good results? Like, what's acceptable results? We need to have benchmarks in place for all the tasks that we're thinking about automating. That's an entirely new job right there to figure that out. And then we also have to be very, very careful about how we go about doing this. There are things that people do that should never be automated, ever. It doesn't really matter if we can build machines that can do those tasks. It's not a question of can, it's a question of should. So even if an AI were to exist in the future, we would, at this time, when that AI is no longer present, decide that that's not going to be automated. For example, anything that requires moral judgment, anything, should be on a no automation list. And this is board level, society level, high level thinking of what can't be. Anything related to vulnerable populations, senior citizens, equity deserving groups, the incarcerated. There should be a no automation list there. So the report goes from understanding where we need to automate, analyzing tasks, but also cautions about there are places that you shouldn't really automate, even if you can. And you have to identify where those places are for your organization, for whatever it is that you do. That step needs to be in place. The other issue at a macro level is the question of the digital divide. And this is quite concerning. There's a document, the World Bank, it's a paper actually, the World Bank has published in March 2025 on digital public infrastructure. And this slide is basically what they're talking about in that document in the macro trend. So let me give you some numbers they provide early on. So 2.6 billion people globally still do not have access to internet, like zero. A very large percentage of the global population do have access to internet, but it's unreliable. It's either slow, it disconnects, or governments disconnect them, cut them, they reduce the speed, they censor. Okay. That in itself is not the issue as the paper outlines. It's not about the question of access. The paper outlines something called digital infrastructure or public digital infrastructure. And what that is that your ability to access services and information through your phone or through computers. Our health system is on an app now. Our finances is on app now. You do your banking through your app. So we have public digital infrastructure in places where we have internet. Great. Well, what happens in all those places where we don't have that or we don't have stable internet? Last week I was at IKEA and I was returning something. They have a digital queue. So you'd have to go up to a screen, enter in your name, your phone number, and then they pop your information on the screen. And when it's your turn, you go up to the counter. There's no numbers or paper or anything. So there was this older lady. I don't know if her first language was English. And she was trying to return something, didn't really understand how the digital queue worked. I think she was Ukrainian because after 5 minutes, somebody went up to her and spoke, I thought was Ukrainian, and helped her out. When she approached the screen, it took her maybe 2 minutes just to enter her name and her phone number. This usually takes me 10 seconds. So what's happening here? The people who do not have access to reliable internet and therefore public digital infrastructure never develop the confidence or the digital fluency to access these systems. That's a literacy issue. It's not just about access. It's about giving people time and space to feel comfortable with these. And I'm not talking about third world countries. I was in Alberta, in a city north of Red Deer, and I was trying to present this AI system for agriculture. Couldn't get the system to work because the internet was not reliable. When I talked to the people there about these systems, they were terrified. They didn't want anything to do with them. They didn't have the confidence to work with these systems. They said, if the system makes a mistake or doesn't work properly, who's going to fix that? Somebody has to come here, the internet's not reliable. You want us to rely on that? The unfortunate truth is yes. Because, like I said, small, medium organizations are moving in that direction. IKEA has a digital queue. More and more of these interfaces are going to shift from human to machine. It's just more efficient that way. And so we're going to have fewer human beings doing these types of services, and the people who don't have access, they're just going to have to wait, give more of their time, more of their energy, so that they could see a human, so that the human can help them sort out whatever issue it is that they're having. The point the report was trying to make is that whatever you do, you have to keep digital inclusion, AI inclusion in your digital strategy. It's not a separate thing. When you add AI to all of this, it creates another layer that people need to have time to talk to, integrate, develop fluency and confidence. We're already behind, and some cities or some organizations, they're already moving forward. How should we approach the digital literacy question now that we have this information? Now that we know the large global trends, what should we do? For me, it was never about, well, I'm going to backtrack. For the World Bank and the IMF, AI literacy means prompting. Using prompts, learning how to make tools, using AI to make tools, all of that. And I'm sure most of the people here are aware. For me, though, yes, that's important, but we also need to highlight and have a better understanding of what must remain human as we teach AI literacy. What must remain human, I think, are components that only humans have the characteristics of. Machines can't have those characteristics. And so I'm going to introduce 3: human agency, human attentiveness, and human accountability. Talk about agency first. So human agency separates us from machines. It's one's capacity to make a decision, not just follow one. My wife sometimes says, ChatGPT said, like, stop right there. We don't follow decisions, right? ChatGPT can't tell us what we're going to have for dinner. ChatGPT can't tell us what's a good job direction. ChatGPT can't tell us if romantic advice. And ChatGPT can't tell us anything about whether we should take our life or not, which is a serious issue, and it does happen. We need to teach people that they need to make decisions, not follow one. When you make a decision, you have to peg that decision to a value system. You have to have intentionality. You can't just make a decision because it feels good, or it sounds good, or other people are doing it. That value system can be anything. It could be science, it could be faith, it could be lived experience. It could be indigenous ways of knowing and being. It doesn't matter. It has to have a value system, something that backs and supports the decision that you make. The final component is judgment. One's capacity to discern what's real from what sounds real. And this is something difficult. Many people don't have this capability because we never needed to learn it. If someone is fluent on a subject, talks about that subject quite nicely, because we believe that fluency is achieved when one is able to, if one has learned about that subject, we naturally say, okay, I'm going to believe that guy because this guy is fluent. AIs, of course, are fluent. They could provide garbage, like absolute false lies, but they say it so elegantly. It sounds true. So there's a veil, a separation, a threshold between what I call plausible fiction and nonfiction. And that threshold, that veil, only humans can make that a reality. A human must touch that content in order for that content to be real. Otherwise, it will always remain fiction. Sounds plausible, but it's fiction. The other component of this literacy model is attentiveness. Machines can't be attentive. So I'll put this in a context of learning to make more sense. In my classes, there is a very strong focus of people sitting with something and being uncomfortable with the content that they're about to learn. So we have something called the grace period. When I present my students with a problem, we have a contracted grace period where nobody touches AI. It could be 15 minutes, it could be a day, it could be an hour. The whole idea is engage with the problem yourself. There is room for AI later. What I need you to do is I need you to really exhaust your cognitive resources here. Once that grace period is over, then I have them articulate why they need AI at all. So it might be that they're trying to describe something and they don't have the words. They know what they need to describe, but they don't have the words. So the issue that AI solves is that it may provide them with a list of words. And then we have this narrowing of the task. So in industry, prompting is all about give as little as possible and receive a lot. Provide a description of an app, have the AI write it. In a learning context, is exactly the opposite. Provide a lot to the AI, but receive very little. Something very targeted. I don't have the words. Give me 4 words that describe a toxic landfill. 4. Don't write anything for me. I want to do that myself, but I don't have the words. So just help me in this bit. This entire process is, of course, captured. What's the problem? How am I going to approach it? What are the ways that the machine can help me? And then write the prompt. It's a very different way of looking at prompting via learning than industry prompting. The last component is accountability. So I'm going to say this out loud. Humans remain responsible for all outputs. You cannot blame AI for output. You have to vet it. Anything that a student or an employee submits, they take full responsibility for it. And if something goes wrong, they take accountability for it. That has to be like written in stone. Otherwise, it will open up Pandora's box of organizations saying, well, our AI kind of messed up. Well, we can't be held accountable for this, like Air Canada tried to do. Got shot down in 2024. So it's the law of the land now. The other bit is verification. Verification seems very simple. Sometimes people skip it because the AI is so elegant. Says things very elegantly. And so why would we need to verify anything? Of course we need to verify. If you're in a public library, try to verify it with a non-AI source. All AIs are biased because their training data is different, right? Okay. So it might be a good idea to have multiple AI think about something and compare to see if there are gaps. And even if you don't find gaps, that still doesn't mean it's true. You have to verify. There are verification methods. Public libraries are really good places to help you understand what those methods are. The last thing I'll say is most people don't know what they should and shouldn't put into a machine. Sometimes they put in personal information, credit card numbers, they upload their bank account statements and say, do some calculations for me, like the last 6 months, how much did I pay for takeout? And that sounds great and all, but you've uploaded personal information that you shouldn't have. And it seems simple, but our youth don't know. Senior citizens don't know. And therefore, we're exposing them to a whole bunch of new scams that are AI generated. So accountability, I think, is a culture that we need to instill. There needs to be a poster somewhere saying, here are the steps that you need to take whenever you're dealing with AI output. And if we just put something like that out there, we've increased societal AI literacy significantly. The last thing I'll talk about is how AI amplifies advantage. I've said this a lot. AI provides selective advantage. If you are a type of person who is comfortable with technology, you're going to go and explore AI. If you're naturally a type of person that you're going to sit and wait, you're not comfortable with technology naturally, just who you are. Because AI moves really, really quickly, you might get into it late, and then the whole time you're going to be spending trying to understand what the next thing and the next thing and the next thing is. There are people, I mentioned, have access to the internet. There are people who can't pay for a large language model that's paid, which is better. That's selective advantage. Just can't. There are people that don't have a safe space to sit and just work with the machine. All of that creates selective advantage. The people who do, they excel. The people who don't, they are left behind. And that's something really, really important, because most universities and public institutions believe that if we give AI to everybody gets a Copilot or ChatGPT license or Gemini, we have solved the digital divide. Everybody has access. That's not true. It's not about just access. It's about, again, having the confidence and the fluency of working with these systems. It's about having agency. It's about having attunement. It's about having accountability. If you don't develop those skills, if you're not prepared, access won't really do any good. It might actually do more damage than good. We don't know. It's too early to study them. But I'm going to leave that out there. Okay. So, come to the end of the presentation. Again, a lot of people say AI literacy is about learning to work with machines. It's about prompting. It's about knowing the different types of LLMs available. It's about being able to make tools and code. And yes, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund seems to think so. I don't really necessarily think that is the case. Yes, all those things are important, but at a societal level, what's more important is it's about deciding what needs to remain human, even if AI can take up those tasks. Thank you so much. I think we have 5 minutes for questions. Yes?
Is it too late to build safe AI? You mentioned that the time for experimentation is over. I'll just assert that the experiment about AI governance at the legal level hasn't even started.
Just define what you mean by safe.
Safe, the things that you mentioned, human dignity, moral judgment, which is being eroded by well-publicized cases of IP theft by AI companies.
I think that we could fight it. We can set IP rules, and we could clarify which data could be used for training and which data can't. We'll probably have some success in North America. India is not going to honor that. Neither is China. They're going to use material. There's a law, as an Indian law, I think, that states that if something, even if it's copyrighted, is for the benefit of the Indian people, then they're going to waive copyright. And it goes back to colonial rule. You took something from us, we'll take something from you. It comes from there. So I don't think that, yes, we can, at a smaller scale, do that. But at a global scale, I'm not so sure. Oh, cool. No more question? Yeah, sure.
It might be beyond the scope of this. It might be discussion for future AI futures. Gen AI has advanced so quickly in 3 years. I've heard talk about super intelligence and where's Gen AI going to be in 5 years, 10 years? And super intelligence means it's more than just putting in prompts. Like computers obtaining almost consciousness. And don't turn me off. I'm sentient. Could be like a Star Trek hologram. How would that impact AI literacy? Like, or it's not just a machine anymore. Is that possible? And what's your opinion on that?
I have no idea. The question of superintelligence is out there. We don't really know what it's going to look like. There are many different scenarios there's the Terminator scenario, and then there are scenarios where AIs make paradise. The answer to that question is we'll have to wait and see. There's no way to prepare for it because we don't know what it is. And definitely a topic for future AI futures. Yes?
I have a question about this moral judgment that you say AI shouldn't touch it here if it can. And then we are usually comparing that with the human decisions. And when we are looking at the history, humans also have made terrible moral decisions. So I think AI is as biased as we are as a common people. How do you see that in terms of even us as a human, when we are looking at the history, we have done terrible moral decisions as well.
And we have learned from them. I'm not really sure if AI is capable of learning. If there's a superintelligence and the AI learns in a simulation about the consequences of making bad decisions, then yes, it should probably be integrated somewhere. What separates us from the machine is that the machine only spits out symbols that it has no understanding of. It's just a sequence of symbols that makes sense to us. Moral judgment is completely related to our history and all the bad decisions that we've made. And now we're in a point where we look at the past and we say, well, we should probably not do that. So until that point where machines can learn from them, they're not just spitting out symbols, I think it should remain human.
And isn't that the promise of machine learning? That's literally the promise of machine learning?
Yes. It is literally the promise, not fulfilled yet, but promise of machine learning.
There's a question online if you want to read it because you're mic'd up.
Is there any way that a new Bell data center investment in the city benefits the advancement of AI? Like providing AI infrastructure for university startups to build and deploy local AI models? That's a hard question. Whenever you deal with AI systems, there's always a give and take. So we have to think about what that center is going to give us versus what impact it's going to have on the local population, the environment, it's going to take away from us. If there's a net benefit, yes. But somebody has to really look carefully at the net benefits before moving forward. And I don't know if I've answered that question, but that's where my thinking is. All good?
We will draw the presentation to a close. So in room and online, please join me in a thank you for Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan.
Thank you.